Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Pope Metallicus, and welcome back to Rock and Roll Religion. And we've got a bit of a different episode for you today. Usually we go over a series of albums or a band in particular. Well, today we're going over an artist that kind of just was around the whole genre by himself for a while, and also has played with some really influential bands, and just generally a guitar legend in his own right. And of course, we were talking about Michael Schenker, one of the German guitar geniuses from that period, and a huge influence on thrash and speed metal and just the genre as a whole. And helping me do that, as always, we have 70s rock fan. How's it going, my friend?
It's going very well, mate. I'm so glad we finally got to do this, and this is great. This is my
Absolutely,
stuff.
man.
Traditional, classic, heavy rock, heavy metal,
Yeah, and
right in my
it's like
wheelhouse.
right up both of our alleys. Like I'm like a huge trad heavy and speed metal fan, and you're more on like the 70s hard rock and
I'm a
trad
hard
heavy
rock
vibe.
trads, yeah. But this and in particular for me, I'm an enormous UFO fan.
Yeah, and that's where
Although
this guy really started shining.
ironically, I never saw them with Schenker, which is the bizarre thing. I missed it by that much.
I
But I
mean,
did see the
that figures, right?
yeah.
It's like both times I've seen Priest were after Glenn Tipton wasn't performing anymore. It's like, oh,
Just,
come on, you're the reason I picked up
just
the guitar.
outside. Yeah,
And
it's
of course,
but I do love UFO, and I love those albums that he made with him, and it's always great to see him grudgingly come back time and every few years and do something else.
and of course, as always, we have our laser guided commie killing machine of death, the Sentinel. How's it going?
Hail. How's it going, guys?
Pretty good. Good to have you back,
Good
man.
mate.
Man,
Good mate.
Michael Schenker, his DNA is in so many different places in rock and in metal. He doesn't get enough credit because he helped introduce kind of classical guitar techniques, not to the extent Eddie Van Halen did, but his kind of background in, I think, classical music really helped
Mhm.
his songwriting abilities. He's written great songs with UFO. He's written some decent songs with the Scorpions. But his MSG stuff, I think, is very underrated.
Yeah, and of course that iconic flying V with the mirror in
Oh
black and
yeah.
white. Oh, it's just gorgeous. I want it so bad.
There's a
It's
debate.
beautiful.
There's a debate between KK and Michael Schenker as to who was the first to popularize the flying V. Michael Schenker says it was him. KK says it was him. What
I
do
would
you
say
guys
Jimi
think?
Hendrix, but
I would say Johnny Winter, but
Johnny
that's just
Winter.
me.
he was
He
one of the
used
first
one
ones
for
to
a
really
while.
use it.
He used
Hendrix
one
was
for a
used one
while.
for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd say
But
KK Downing, and I think it's a mix of all of them because
yeah, that's
The V had been around since '58
oh
and
yeah.
hadn't really been used all that much, and was just kind of one of those obscure things that Gibson made as a side gig.
I think they
Yeah.
meant in association with heavy metal, not just rock,
Yeah.
more heavy metal.
But I
I
think
should have said that before
No,
I
in
made that
heavy metal,
comment.
yeah, Schenker
but I
and
think
Downing, yeah.
Schenker full stop is probably the most associated with it over
Hmm.
time
I would
Him
agree.
and his
in
brother
any
Rudolph, because they
genre
both
of rock.
used them extensively.
Well,
Yeah,
you remember
because
that picture we showed of the two of them holding the guitar
Yep.
the other day? That was brilliant. I'm going to print a copy of that and frame it, I think.
Now, what would be really cool is if you had a picture of him and Rudolph and had the
oh
mirrored flying V's with like each one of them has the white and black pattern but reversed.
oh,
That would be
I was
cool as
going to
hell.
say I could find that Rudolph Schenker and Michael Schenker image.
Yeah,
Let me see if I
absolutely.
can find it.
Because it's a
The
really
other
cool picture.
it
Yeah,
is
It's about the
these
only time you'll
are
see him and his brother getting along too.
exactly, and that's something we should talk about to a certain extent because
Because it does have an
yeah.
impact on his early career with the Scorpions, and
exactly
then one of the reasons he went to UFO, and
right.
also just the relationship between them in general. And while
Yeah,
you're looking for that, let's kind of chat real quick. We got Christian DeLorme in the house as always. Always good to talk to you, man. And I'm looking forward to that first stream we do. That's going to be a fun time.
I found the picture. You want me to post it in the private chat, or can I just share it real quick?
Just share it up.
Okay.
We'll do it. And
Uh,
Zax is here. Always good to see you, buddy. Had a
Hey,
great
buddy.
time hanging out in your stream the other night. And Papa Cotton, as usual. Always good to see it. Now that I can see your comments again after I fixed that shit. Oh yeah, here we
Did you
go.
block him?
No, I don't
Accidentally?
know how it happened, but I had 2 guys on my block list. I've never blocked anyone from the channel.
It does happen.
And
Shit
it
happens.
ended up there.
On my life, I've never blocked anybody.
But
on
but
this
some
channel.
but go into your block list every now and
check it
again
from
and
time to
just check,
time,
make sure there's nobody in there that you don't mean to be in there.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how I had 2 guys end up on there, but they did.
Okay.
But yeah, Sentinel found the picture, and this is just freaking.
It's a
yes.
beautiful picture.
All
yeah,
of the
I love
yes.
that. I'm really thinking of getting that either as a poster or printing it myself and framing it. And
Oh God, yeah, that would be awesome.
That's an awesome picture.
I've got lots of space on the walls to fill, so it's
Absolutely.
going to be good.
I think that was a Dean when they were sponsored.
Yeah,
by
that's a D&V. You can
Yeah.
tell by the neck.
Yep.
That split
Beautiful.
headstock is how you tell every time.
Yeah.
Because the Gibsons still have that classic spear tip like this one. If I can get it on camera,
Right.
like that.
Yeah.
And I still think the Gibson looks better, but
It does, because you can
that
actually
was-
if you sharpen that Gibson headstock enough, it becomes like a guitar spear that you can kill.
it's
with
true.
it.
I think there was one of the old blues guys used to play that. It was Freddie King or somebody played the Flying V as well. One of those kings.
Yeah, they have a
There's 8
really
of them.
nice. They have a really nice tone to them. The Gibsons do anyway, with that
Chuck-
a very heavy blues tone to it. That's really good. It's almost like Les Paul.
Did Chuck
Yeah.
Berry ever play a Flying V?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
because they were out in '58, but they sold I think 70 of them that
I
year.
don't recall seeing him, but he might have. It's possible because he would play anything that was lying around because he didn't really carry a lot of gear around.
True.
Just
Yeah.
play whatever his backing band was on the night. He would play.
Yeah, if
that
you
shit.
need a new guitar, just go down to the local music store and be like, okay, what do you got?
I know.
Albert King played them, and Albert King was huge influence on Gary Moore.
Oh, I love
and,
Gary.
Stevie Ray Vaughan, and guys like that.
Oh,
I love those guys, man. Gary Moore. We got to do an episode on Ben Lizzie and Gary Moore.
Dave Davies played one of the Kinks. He played a Flying V for a while in the
Yeah.
60s. Yeah, so it's got a long history. It's got an illustrious history.
And it's all associated with rock and roll. Like, if you see a guy playing a Flying V, you're about to hear some heavy shit come out the speakers.
Right. James Hetfield loves that Flying V. I think he said it's not like a real Gibson Flying V, but it's like
I forget what company makes his.
well, it's not ESP. I'm talking about the one he used to record Kill 'Em All. It's
That
like
was a Gibson, I believe.
That was
It's either
not really
Gibson or
okay.
Epiphone,
Okay,
which is the same company. It's just not made in the U.S.
right. But the tone he got on that album from that guitar.
Oh yeah, that sounds just evil.
Yes.
I love it. And but no, this guy, it's hard to overstate how important he is and how long he's been doing it. Apparently, according to his bio, he played his first gig when he was 11 and first played with the Scorpions at 16.
Yeah. 17,
Not for
16-ish, I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I couldn't
he's
believe
been
that.
out-
I was like, I think I was younger than Tommy Lee was when he played with Motley Crue, because Tommy was like 16. No,
yeah, we're
Tommy-
talking like Yngwie Malmsteen levels, where like he
Yeah.
showed up in freaking Alcatraz when he was 19 years old.
I know. Graham Bonnet is another guy we got to get into.
And who
someday.
actually played with Schenker briefly.
That's right. The Assault Attack album, which is one of
and
my favorite of his
apparently the
MSG
reason
stuff.
he was fired was he drunkenly exposed himself at the first gig he ever played with them live, so that didn't last long. That's one of those things, like, you can do a lot in a band, for especially a rock and metal band, but it's just like, dude, you whipped your dick out in front of the crowd.
Yeah.
can only
And it
help you so much.
wasn't that impressive. So if it was
The
impressive,
good news is it was so small no one saw it.
well, there's
But
a lot
no,
of dick fighting going on in bands usually, but usually they keep it the physical one in their trousers, and they just talk.
Schenker is certainly a perpetrator of that, given his band, especially with MSG, but also with the Scorpions and UFO, has just been a revolving door of personality problems.
Yeah. It's sad
like
because
walking off mid-song, that kind of thing. Just
That kind of shit will get you in trouble real fast. And I don't know if it's just substance abuse or he's just a difficult personality to work with.
it's a little both, because he's constantly, Rudolph has never said a bad thing. I've never read anything where Rudolph has said anything bad about Michael. But Michael, almost in every interview, he says something bad about Rudolph, how he's two-faced or something like that.
He's a bit of a brat, really. He's like your
really
younger
is.
brothers. They're brats, you know.
Yeah, younger brothers are brats. I should know. I got a younger brother.
I was the younger brother.
Fortunately, I was spared that. And Soul Assassin, I haven't seen that video. That would be.
Oh,
that
I've
would be
seen it.
fun.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, it's in Albuquerque. I think it's the one he means, and he thinks he's going to steal a guitar, and he gets absolutely wrecked. It's great, and he ends up face down, unconscious on the sidewalk outside.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you try to fuck around.
Oh,
It
that's
makes to where
right.
the
He tried
metalheads
to steal
show
the
up.
car.
He found out. He fucked around, and he found out.
It's like that's what happens when you try to steal steal music equipment from the metalheads. You end up bleeding on the sidewalk.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like Mustaine stole his first guitar. Who else stole the first guitar? Well, I think it was John Lennon stole his first guitar.
Was
Yeah.
always stealing guitars. Like he would turn up at a gig in the pre-Beatles in the Quarrymen, and he'd say, "I like the look of that guitar," and it would end up going home with him.
Yep.
It had a bit of a reputation.
And getting into Schenker's history with some of these bands, I forgot to put this in the slideshow because I'm dumb. But I started out with the Scorpions for their first two records. Really only played with them for a short period of time, from 72 to 74.
72 to I think 79 because last album he
No,
played
because
on
he was with
Love Drive.
UFO from 70.
Okay.
I think but I think Sentinel's right in that. Strictly speaking, he was still in and out of the Scorpions at various times.
He played a lot of live gigs with them. He played a lot of live gigs with them.
Yeah,
and
he was kind of
albums.
On-off thing. So officially speaking, they claim he didn't really leave.
And he came back to the Scorpions to record Love Drive in 79.
Yeah, and then he definitively left.
After that one, I don't think he was allowed back for a while.
I kind of like the fact that he did that, because if he hadn't left the Scorpions early on, albeit to keep coming back for various bits and pieces, we would never have got his time in UFO.
And that's the best, pretty much the best.
Yeah,
in my opinion,
and
that's
then the
like
solo
the best.
stuff.
The best stuff he's ever done.
This is UFO's classic period.
So I love it when the fact that it unites these two major bands as well. They've got connective tissue, and so sometimes they've appeared together on lineups, and they've all been on stage together because Schenker links them, you know.
And sonically, they kind of track together a little bit as well.
Yeah,
like you can hear a bit of cross pollination going on. Like you'll hear some UFO stuff that sounds like it came from the Scorpions, and vice versa.
And he certainly toughened up UFO's sound immediately. I mean, they were pretty much a spacey band before that, bit psychedelic, bit spacey, and then immediately it was into hard rock.
Which makes sense with a bit name like UFO. You'd be into a little bit of the space rock genre.
Yeah, because these UFOs started in the mid to late 60s, you know, initially. So they did a lot of psychedelics. So he didn't remove that from their sound completely. He just gave them a really tough edge they hadn't had.
Yeah, Lights Out in London. Rock Bottom, Doctor,
Rock Bottom,
Rock Bottom,
brilliant.
Yeah.
Oh,
especially and doing it live, it allowed him to really. They used to make it like 15 minutes long because he could just solo the shit out of it.
Well, because that solo in the middle is like 3 minutes.
Yeah,
and he's just going off, and then just comes right back into the main riff, and you could easily see that going on, almost like I've seen a version of She-Wolf done live by Megadeth, and the end solo lasts for like 4 minutes and has a drum solo in the middle bit there. It's just fantastic.
Some songs just lend themselves to that. In fact, bands know what they're doing when they put them in an album, is they know they're going to make that the 15 minutes worth on stage.
Oh yeah.
I just recently bought Man of War Triumph of Steel. And the first song is Achilles, and it's a 26-minute song that has sections where they're singing like a regular song with verses and choruses, and they stop, and there's a bass solo, and then that goes into a fantastic drum solo, and then they have little bits with like Eric kind of just like breathily singing. So I love that kind of stuff where they have like instrumentation, unless it gets boring, because sometimes it can get pretentiously boring.
Yeah, again, looking at you, Iron Maiden.
Yeah, exactly. Like the new Iron Maiden.
You've actually touched on something that's one of my bugbears because I'm not a big jam band fan. I don't like jam bands, as they call them. I
I
find
agree.
it
I don't like.
indulgent. I find them very indulgent. Like the Grateful Dead were one of the original
Oh,
ones, and
fuck
they just
that.
go on and on and on. Like, okay, I get it. You know how to play that riff. I get it. Like,
That's
it's
why I
no
never liked
commitment
Led
for it.
Zeppelin live because they were so self-indulgent in some of that stuff.
Yeah.
On their albums, they're lights out, but
Well,
live,
exactly, but live is just unless it's Bono, John Bonham playing, Moby Dick,
yep.
So,
or
yeah.
I'm not really interested.
I've got a love-hate relationship with Led Zeppelin in that there is some of their stuff I absolutely adore, but I can also see the flaws in them
Yeah.
and the fact that I think there are, yes, they were hugely commercially successful, but I think there are actually better bands from the era.
Black Sabbath live kicks them.
Heresy, I know, but I think there are better bands.
Deep Purple live is amazing.
Yeah.
Kick their ass right off the
Having
stage.
said that, I never saw Zeppelin live, so maybe I was missing something. I don't know.
And you know who I blame for that? I blame Led Zeppelin. They should, if Black Sabbath could get back together and play until 2013, and if fucking Deep Purple could stay consistent with Steve Morrison, bringing Don Airey after John Lord died, then what the fuck is the problem with Led Zeppelin? Like they're too good. They're too good to play to fans.
I think Robert Plant was the issue. I think he wanted to do something different. He wanted to get away from the heavier stuff, and he saw
I think a lot
he saw
of
it
it
as an
too
opportunity.
I think a lot of it too was they were using John Bonham's death as an excuse not to just blow it up and go their own ways, which I think is a tragedy because I think they had more to do.
Thing.
Yeah, I personally think, here's the thing. When they did that 2007 concert in London where they brought in Jason Bonham, and that's like the perfect drummer to bring in. It's not just because of the son, but because the style Jason Bonham has is perfect for Led Zeppelin. So I thought they would at least play a couple stadium shows in the United States, but nope. Just one show. I think it was it at Madison Square Garden or London?
No, I think it was in London at the O2, I think, wasn't it?
That's what. Okay.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think again that's back to Plant. Plant doesn't want to do it. For one thing, he doesn't want to do the kind of high level screechy stuff he did in Zeppelin. He wants to sing the Alison Krauss era stuff.
Yeah.
Because he's older and he just doesn't want to do it. He wants to sing
more
rootsy stuff.
Or something. That's why Richie Blackmore is doing medieval music. He's banging his hot wife.
Because I think Page
and Jones would fantastic too.
It is.
Page and Jones would do it in a heartbeat, but if you see them when they guested with the Foo Fighters in London doing rock and roll, they absolutely killed it. You know, they would do it forever.
Yeah, but you know, if their heart's not in it,
their heart's not in it.
Because if you're just phoning it in, it's gonna come through.
Right. That LSD is a bitch, man. Lead singer disease can kill bands like that.
And it's hard too to replace a singer and have it sound good.
Yeah, you can't replace Robert Plant.
It's such a huge part of your presence and sound that if you change it out, it can go really well in some cases, like Priest with Ripper Owens.
Well, Ripper was pretty good. I like Ripper.
Ripper was good. It was just some of the albums were just not as strong. And I personally think Ripper is a great singer, but as far as like a songwriter or song contributor, he's weaker than he is to Alfred. That's just my opinion.
Good live, though.
I don't know that they really included him in the writing room very much because he's
maybe that was it.
He doesn't know that.
Maybe that was it. They didn't trust. He was more of a singer for hire at that point.
The movie Rockstar really was about that.
We need to do a live stream about that movie because I hated that movie when it came out because it was making fun of the 80s in a way. But now I look back on it and I see the kind of tongue-in-cheek humor about it.
Yeah. And it actually did capture some of the sounds and attitudes quite well. And it did capture the Priest story.
Oh, my God. Well. That and you know the guy from Steelheart, the singer?
Yeah.
He did that song, We Die Young. And it was like a big, big radio hit. It was like the first radio hit he had in 10 years. And then September 11th happened. And they started like heavily censoring songs on the radio. Dio, you couldn't play Holy Diver. Some other songs you couldn't play on the radio during post 9/11. I didn't even know that. But apparently
I didn't
that's
know
what
that.
happened, and that's what slowed down the potential, because if it had like dye in it or any kind of like sensitive shit, they wouldn't play it.
Yeah. Too sensitive, yeah. But We Die Young's a good song. I like that.
It's a great song. I love it.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic track, and it's just like, and it was done for the movie too. Like that's what I loved about it, is they had original music that was done for it.
And they had real musicians. They had Jeff Pilson, they had Zach Wild, and they had Jason Barham in it.
Pilson's great. He's one of my favorites of any band or any.
Yeah.
I like
And
him.
then,
Nice guy.
but yeah,
too.
after his brief tenure with the Scorpions, which he produced some pretty killer content with them even early on, and then you have his period with UFO.
Yeah.
And goddamn, like this band is underrated as hell. Like
most underrated.
Most even classic rock fans, if you mentioned UFO to them, they'll look at you with this blank stare, like, who?
Yeah,
That's
I know.
One of my favorite
How do you
albums of
not
all
know
time,
these
right
guys?
there. I was kind of the same as when I was 14 or 15. I was like, I love UFO. Everyone was like, who? Never heard of them.
Yeah,
And these was guys that liked rock. They were like, who?
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like, you know, people who just like listen to popular music or whatever, and like, yeah, of course you're not going to know who it is, but like other rock fans are like, who are you talking about? Like, how do you not know who these guys are?
And the two reasons I know about UFO is because Lights Out was featured in Detroit Rock City, the movie, and then Kirk Hammett would not stop talking about how much of an influence Michael Schenker was. And we'll get into the influence is a little later.
Yeah, because I found a whole list of them that all claim him as an influence. And one of the influences he had, to go into it briefly, was a man who just passed this week, Jeff Beck.
Oh, rest in peace, Jeff.
I mean, rock has lost one of its real icons in him, one of the best guitar players I've ever heard. And
a total beast. Even into his 70s, he was still ripping it.
And one of those guys who never really chased the limelight either, or chased mainstream success. He just did what he did and did what he liked.
Stayed true to his own self, integrity. It's a big thing.
Which also explains why he couldn't stay in a band for more than a couple of years. But, you know.
Another guy who liked to walk off mid-song, Jeff Beck. Even in his own band.
I know.
Right? It's just like, how are you mad? You're the one leading it.
It's your band. You just left the stage. What the fuck?
But that sounds like it sucks. You wrote it.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see what this is. Oh yeah.
I know you've got a slideshow, but I was just looking at images earlier from UFO's doing a lot of remastered reissues, and they had this cover of this single there. I thought that is so 70s hard rock. Yep. Look at that cover. Isn't that just the best? Nobody's got a shirt on.
They're all wearing
no one's wearing a shirt.
Pants. They all got the tight pants.
That's right, the pants. Like, did these guys never eat? Because they're all like skeletons, pretty much.
Cocaine, baby. Fastest way to lose weight.
That's pretty much.
And then Schenker's got the long blonde hair. He's got the flying V.
Right? Yep.
It's just awesome. I love pictures like that. I mean, I wish I had that single. I don't, but I wish I did.
Yeah, one of my favorite rock and roll pictures of all time, I think, is on the back of the Kill 'Em All album, where you see a young James, Cliff, Lars, and Kirk, and they look so ugly, and they're covered in acne, and it's just, I love it, because they're dirty, smelly fucking...
They are kids. They're like 19.
It's like they look like us when we were growing up. They look exactly like us.
Bands were like that, though. Yeah, they lived in basements with no money, nothing to eat, drinking, smoking, and taking drugs, and every scrap of money they had went on instruments, and they stank because they probably didn't have hot water. That was the life of a band.
Yeah,
in the 70s. Yeah, and it's real. It's kind of real, you know. But yeah, they lived like the fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And
although
then,
some of us showered more than they did. But.
And then on the album itself, you can actually see, what they all look like. And of course, again, one of the most 70s things of all time. Like, all got the flowing hair.
The neutral expression.
Yeah, they're really just out of it. They probably were.
I wonder who took the photographs for that album. I don't know. That's the sort of stuff I never used to know. Who did but it was probably some famous photographer.
Right.
Did that. It'd be like the guy that did the Beatles stuff or whatever, the black and white stuff. So I said, right, I want you to not smile.
Yeah, don't smile.
Take your shirts off. Take your shirts off. He's probably a gay photographer, so he was into that, Hypnosis did the cover art.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like when you first like get some money from your music, like the first thing you probably do is like change your wardrobe because it's probably pretty beat up at that point.
So that Bernie Marsden was involved with the band in this area too. I think he did a little bit of touring with him, and then Schenker came in.
Yeah,
and he did do some work on this album, a little bit of guitar here and there. I was a big Bernie Marsden guy. I think it was terrible that Coverdale shafted him in Whitesnake later.
Coverdale's done that to a lot of people.
Yeah. Anyway, I would love to have seen Bernie Marsden and Michael Schenker in the same UFO. But
that would have been cool. Like I love when like bands for like their live acts later in their career will bring back some previous members to play with the current band. Like band we covered recently, Halloween, did that with their Pumpkins United tour where they had all three of their singers.
Nice. I've got to go. They're coming to the Warfield in San Francisco with Hammerfall in 2023. I've got to go and see that.
Yeah,
it's in June. I don't know if I'll still be in this area in June because I'm in like the East Bay, but I haven't bought tickets yet. But fuck, I gotta see that. I don't care if I'm in the nosebleeds. I gotta see that.
Yeah, that's one of those must-go-to shows. Like I don't care if I have to drive to DC for it. I will do it.
Yeah.
And you all know how much I loathe even mentioning the words DC.
I will deal with the masked Nazis and the COVID Nazis to get in to see that show.
That's one of those.
I will kick them.
Halloween's a band that doesn't come around all that often. They play most of their shows in Europe, so when they do in North America, it's one of those.
And it's going to be the United. It's going to be Kurske and who's the other singer?
Belarus.
So yeah, something like that. It's going to be a tour with the two singers, and they're going to do both.
Now, is Kai Hansen involved with it as well too? Because he was on the first Pumpkins United tour.
Oh yeah, he's definitely involved. The original, except for I think the original drummer and some of the previous players, it's Kai Hansen, the second guitar player. Well, it's hard to figure out. See, the Halloween lineup in the 90s kind of changed around. And I kind of like the Halloween lineup in the 90s because they put some good stuff out. But let's get back to Michael Schenker.
Yeah, and but no, that's going to be a hell of a show. But I love when bands do that, when they'll bring back guys from all their different eras to all play the same stuff. And hey, Christian, that's why we do this.
Well,
man, this is all.
I'm a big fan of Foreigner. I know. Forgive me, but when they did that,
they're awesome. Don't be ashamed to say that.
A few years ago, when they did their 40th or whatever anniversary, they had the entire original band and the current band on stage together. And
I would love to see they switched something like that, but putting Ronnie James Dio and Ozzy Osbourne on the same stage might end badly.
Well, it would now.
Well,
I would still love to see some form of Sabbath with Tony Martin get back together and do a little tour.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's likely given how they've treated him in the past, but
yeah. But they are reissuing I don't know if it's a reissue or a remaster reissue, but they are. Tony Iommi said we're going to be releasing a box set of all the Tony Martin stuff in 2023. So I can't wait to hear that.
That's great because that's an era of the band that I don't think gets talked about enough. And trust me, when we're going to get to Sabbath at some point, but there's something else that needs to happen first before I go into it. But waiting on you, Nick. Just saying.
Did we cover Rainbow yet?
We have not, and we shall very, very shortly.
I can't wait to cover Rainbow.
We may do that next week because I have nothing.
Really?
I have nothing. I'm down. Planned. And Rainbow's a band I always love talking about. So
I pretty much love every incarnation of Rainbow.
Up until they get really commercial in the late '80s, yeah, I can say that. Yeah,
even the early Joe Lynn Turner albums, like the one with the surgical surgeons on the cover, the Spotlight Kid, and all that.
Yeah,
Yngwie Malmsteen rips so much of Richie Blackmore's rips off for some of his later stuff. You could tell it's Richie Blackmore.
Why do you think he has half of Rainbow's former singers in his band?
I know, right?
He had Graham Bonnet with Alcatraz. He had Joe Lynn Turner.
What's that? Doogie White.
Yep.
So I was just
like 3 or 4 of them.
I was looking up to see if the gig you were talking about, to see if it was on in Calgary, but they're not playing in Calgary, so can't go. Although in August the 17th, Rod Stewart with special guests Cheap Trick is playing, so that's an interesting.
Well, we know where 70 will be that day.
Well, I've never seen Rod Stewart, so you never know. I might just do that. Anyway, it's
But
Schenker, it's not exactly rock and roll, but what the hell?
Yeah, but Schenker, like we said, just changed the sound of UFO into from like a kind of it's an interesting band. Like it's still pretty good, but from this kind of weird space rock band into this hard hitting, just 70s rock band that just really was quasi metal up there with bands like Heart and Deep Purple and stuff like that, where they kind of ride that line.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Doctor is just such a classic.
Yeah.
And I actually prefer. I love both versions, but I actually prefer the version that Michael Schenker did with Jeff Scott Soto on one of his compilation albums later.
There's been a few good versions of it by both UFO and Schenker himself. But it's just such a great song. It's like hard and to the point.
Yep.
And that that kind of the sliding riff that he does, that's just awesome.
He's got those instincts that like you can't teach. It's not all about speed and arpeggios. He's got like a little bit of that blues stuff that he kind of emphasizes, the notes and placement, and then he's got the shredding. It just sounds amazing.
That's the awesome thing about him. He can shred. He can do the slow bluesy stuff. He can do like the really neoclassical arpeggios. They're super clear. Like there is nothing that this guy can't do, and the tone he has is just perfect.
Yeah.
Because apparently he has a wah pedal he's pinned halfway down to really emphasize that mid range.
Didn't know that. No.
So that's how we got that tone.
That's fucking awesome.
Which
freaking
I'll
awesome.
Try that. See if I can pin a. Well, first I'd have to get a wah pedal.
I'm sure Kurt has a bunch of them.
I can hear my wallet laughing nervously in the background.
Hold your leg very, very still for a long time.
Just give Kirk Hammond a call. Hey Kirk, do you have any old wah pedals you don't need anymore?
Please. I've been good mostly that anyone can prove. But no, that's a really unique way of solving that problem too, because most guys would just either try to change their gain settings or try to change their mix and stuff like that, where you just took the wah pedal and put it halfway down and then kept it that way.
Imagine getting that scoop sound where it's like the highs are really high and then the lows are really high, and then you got the wah pedal at the mid range. That's a fucking cool ass sound.
Yeah, and it kind of makes him identifiable in whatever band he's in. And throughout this whole period he's with UFO, he was also kind of doing live shows with the Scorpions every now and again, because they were touring in the same circles, not necessarily always on the same tour, but when the stars aligned, he'd show up and play with the Scorpions.
Now, is UFO a German band too?
No, they're
Brits.
They're
Brits, yeah.
Okay.
Londoners, pretty much. Yeah,
which was interesting that he took a gig in an English rock band, seeing as he didn't speak English. Which must have gotten fun in the recording sessions.
If they were from South London, they didn't speak English either. Right, mate, you know what I mean? All right, yeah.
Ironic that a Scot is bagging on somebody else for not speaking English.
Do be quiet, dear boy. We know how to speak. We know how to speak proper England.
Yeah. Remember, the English are terrified of the Scottish.
So are we. You're terrified of us too. Another track I love on this album, it's kind of underlooked, I guess, would be Space Child. I think that's a beautiful piece of stuff.
That one's a really good one.
I love that one, yeah.
But Doctor and Rock Bottom are just...
I love Rock Bottom.
The two main tracks that everyone pays attention to off of this.
And there's a good reason
more and more you spin it, the more and more you find. Mm-hmm. Well, the cool thing with Rock Bottom especially, and Doctor to a lesser extent, is the more you listen to it, the more little stuff you find that's just awesome. Just these little notes here and there, how the bass work comes in a little bit on Rock Bottom especially, or that nice piano bit in the beginning of Doctor. It's just really cool that you can listen to a song for the millionth time and still find something you never noticed before.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and Rock Bottom and Doctor are classics for a reason, They're not overhyped.
I mean,
They
Dr.
are
Doctor's played
stone cold
before
classics.
every Iron Maiden show to this day.
Yeah, very
And they
much.
did a cover of it. They did do a cover.
Yeah,
at
they
one
did.
point. Yeah,
I
think
wish
it was
Maiden
on a
would just
B-side.
get. Oh, sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead, mate. No, you
I
go
just
ahead.
want to say, Iron Maiden, if you're listening, please please release an album where you have all the covers you've ever did for the singles you've all released, so I could, listen to a version of it, because I heard their version of shit. What is it called? I think
Well,
they
they've
did a
got
version
Scorpions
Smoke on the
cover.
Water. Did they
Smoke
do
in the
versions?
Water.
Yeah.
They did. What's the Scorpions cover they did? Oh God. It'll come back to me. I've got it. I'm just looking for it now on my library, which is totally disorganized.
But no, I mean, and bands have done cover albums that are absolutely stellar. I mean, look at Motorhead's Undercover.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's some absolutely kick-ass material on that. And don't worry, guys, we are going to be getting back to Motorhead before long, because we still got plenty to go, because we only did the first 4 records.
Oh, what is the cover I've got of Iron Maiden doing
You know,
Scorpions?
Speaking of Rainbow, just getting back to Rainbow for a second, Rainbow was such an influence that Kai Hansen and several other musicians got together and recorded a Rainbow tribute album where they play Rainbow songs from every era and have like Jeff Scott Soto singing some of the songs, and they have like somebody else singing some of the songs. I'll have to share it with you on Gilded.
Yeah, that would be great, because that sounds like it's right up my alley.
Alrighty.
But I mean, he had so much influence on UFO and was with them for what, 5 years, really?
Like
Up
that,
until
yeah.
from 74 to 79.
4 or 5, yeah, effectively.
And then had a massive fight with the band and stormed out, which this will become a theme.
Yeah.
Of either him storming out on a band or other people storming out on him. And then he went off to found the MICHAEL SCHENKER group, and this is, I think, some of his best stuff.
Yeah.
You got stuff like Armed and Ready, the Mad Axemen, like Ready to Rock. Like, this is just Schenker at his absolute peak. Or my personal favorite song he's ever done, Save Yourself.
It's hard as nails. That's all.
Oh yeah, like this is, I think, where he crosses into the actual heavy metal genre, like entirely.
Yes. Yeah,
because with both UFO and Scorpions, like they were kind of like dipping their toes in it a little bit, and this is when he just dives right in and goes for it. And like this is the perfect time for it too, because this is 1980. This is like the NWO BHM movement is in full swing. Thrash is starting to come out. Like,
he had massive respect.
Really
he had massive respect at the time, and I was in the UK into the new wave of British heavy metal. That was my era, and he had massive respect.
Well, he's toured with Priest, Saxon, Motorhead. Like, he's done all of them, and apparently, according to him anyway, like he was actually approached about being in Motorhead once Fast Eddie Clark left.
Oh, I got a bit of trivia too. When Randy Rhoads died, he was one of the first people that Ozzy Osbourne interviewed for the gig. But like Aerosmith actually tried to recruit him several years earlier, but it didn't pan out. So basically, I think it's always been maybe a personality issue with him, less than musical talent, because he's musically awesome.
Yeah, you can't knock him for his musical ability, but he's apparently a very difficult guy to work with.
Yeah, when you're more difficult than Richie Blackmore to work with, or Yngwie Malmsteen for that matter, you might be the problem. Just
that would have been hilarious if Schenker had ever joined Rainbow. And
the circle is now complete.
So Richie Blackmore might have ended up leaving the band with
his own band. Yeah.
It was the Zoo that Bruce Dickinson covered, not Iron Maiden, but Bruce Dickinson did a version of the Zoo. That's the one.
Oh, okay.
Well, so I can only help it so much. I am wearing the freaking Motorhead emblem on my freaking neck.
I got more trivia for you. Original Motorhead guitarist Larry Wallace was in UFO once.
Really?
Briefly, early back in the early 70s, yeah.
Okay.
So,
because Lemmy had been putting together that Motorhead band for how long? When did they sack him from Hawkwind? 75?
76.
76, okay.
Was it as late as that? Yeah, could have been.
Yeah, and then he pretty much went right into the early incarnation of Motorhead with Wallace and Fox.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then they didn't pan out, so he got
Yeah,
Eddie
Louis, that
Clark
was the
and
Louis
Bill Taylor.
Louis days. Louis
Yep.
Louis. That was that
Yep.
version of that. It was Larry
Oh yeah, I
Wallace.
mean, when they finally put that on the album with Overkill, that was freaking amazing. One of my favorite songs on that record. Just,
Dio
it's
said
like the old classic '50s Louis Louis, but just heavy as fuck.
Right, exactly. And the funny thing is,
huge bass sound that freaking Motorhead was famous for, and you know that these guys were around right at the same time, touring with all of them. So like these guys, Schenker was, you know, in the same category as these people, and
yeah, Jeff, he was in the same category as Don, not Don Darkin. Jeff Lynch. Is that the right Jeff Lynch?
George Lynch.
George Lynch. He was in that conversation. He was the conversation with Randy Rhoads. He was in the conversation with Eddie to a certain extent.
Yep. Glenn Tipton and K.K. Downing for sure.
Glenn Tipton. Yep.
Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden actually lists this dude as an inspiration.
Oh, really? I didn't get Adrian Smith. I got the influences were Kirk Hammett named him. Michael Amott from Arch Enemy is basically loves him. Alex Skolnick from Testament and Dave Mustaine. I never knew Dave Mustaine
and Marty Freeman.
Michael Schenker. And Marty Freeman. I had no idea Dave and Marty were huge Michael Schenker fans.
Well, this album was a big hit at the time. Certainly in Britain. I don't know about North America. It was in the top 10 in the UK. He was very well known at that point in the UK and in Europe in general. So he was a star at the time.
And you know, the follow-up albums with Michael Schenker Group were just as good in terms of musical quality. Every single one of them had some really killer content.
Assault Attack is one of my favorite Michael Schenker albums.
Hell yeah, they got
great. It's heavy, and it's like they got Graham Bonnet singing on it, and it just sounds so good.
Yeah, I mean, and like we said, Graham Bonnet was in the band very briefly, because
I actually saw the incarnation.
He drunkenly exposed himself to the crowd, so you know.
Yeah, I did actually. That's the incarnation of Rainbow I saw live with Graham Bonnet.
Cool.
That was a really cool period for them.
The Down to Earth tour was the first time I saw Rainbow live. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's like probably. Okay, it's like my second favorite Rainbow album of all time. It's like Rainbow Rising and then Down to Earth.
Down to Earth was brilliant, and that gig particularly was just awesome. It was.
So you were at the Donington gig?
No, this was Stafford Bingley Hall.
Okay.
Same tour, but Stafford Bingley Hall, which is one of the most famous rock venues in Britain, or it used to be. By day, a cattle shed, literally a cattle shed. By night, heavy metal venue. In the middle of the country, in the middle of nowhere, 5,000 capacity cattle shed, stank, floors are covered in shit, but the gigs were amazing. So yeah, I saw a lot of bands there, but I saw the Down to Earth tour with Graham Bonnet. It was a great night, brilliant night, just happy memories. But yeah, Schenker, so much good stuff at that time. But Schenker was not an obscure artist, if I could put it that way, in the UK. He was having top 10 albums during that early 80s period, so pretty well known, toured a lot. Again, it's like all these guys, if they don't sing, it's kind of a little bit harder to become the star, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, it was me that interrupted you. I insist. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say that I think it might have been the European thing. He had maybe, I don't know if he had toured North America enough, or like you were saying, he wasn't in a lineup long enough where there were enough consistent albums to grow, a fan base, because if a group doesn't have a solid lineup making consistent good albums, and there's a start and stop, I think it really impedes your momentum.
I think so. And if you look at the lineup of MSG, it's just a revolving door of members. Yeah. I mean, like 30 different people in the band.
Yeah.
Very hard to maintain, as you say, to grow a following when it's just like a bewildering array of almost, you would see them as session men then almost, you know.
Right. I think the record for most musicians, I think, might be Malmsteen and then Schenker. Absolutely.
Yeah, Schenker's had about 30 people in the band at various times. And
yeah, I think Yngwie just has the record because he's been active longer. Because Schenker kind of disappeared for a while in the 90s and didn't really.
That's true. He disappeared. He went bankrupt. He had, I think he had some addiction problems, and then he finally reemerged in 2003. Because I read that Guitar Hero article where he finally sort of came out of hiding. You know, because he was just secluding himself, you know, in hotel rooms, just getting drunk and high for several years throughout the 90s and early 2000s.
It's unfortunate he did it at that period too, because like, you know, back in the day, secluding yourself in a hotel room and getting drunk and high was how you created a classic album.
Yeah,
that's right.
Well, it was hard to make good metal albums in the 90s, to be honest. The 90s were kind of like a cultural wasteland for good heavy metal music in America, at least.
So
there was like Pantera and well, the Tampa Bay death metal scene.
90s.
That's about it.
Yeah. In Europe, the power metal scene was really taking off. Bands like Hammerfall and Blind Guardian.
It didn't affect South America or Japan either.
Yep. Yeah, the U.S. was pretty much the only place where it really cratered.
Yeah. And I blame the record labels. I blame grunge, and I blame a lot of the hip hop and country that they just focus on. They just immediately just went, as soon as like 1990 hit, they just went swipe and just changed the entire, landscape.
Because they were
People were still into this music.
Big contracts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there is a slight difference between you guys over in North America. Well, I'm here too now, obviously, but in the UK always had a hardcore metal following, and it never died. It maybe commercially faded away from time to time, but the hardcore never abandoned it. And then over time, they managed to get it back into the mainstream more again. And
there's constantly
never really died.
A pretty loyal metal scene in various places in the U.S. too.
Right. I don't know if you experienced this, Pope, but when I was coming up, you were kind of like, I don't know about a weirdo, but you were kind of like thought of as living in the past if you were listening to old school Metallica or Dio or Yngwie Malmsteen at high school into like 2000.
But that's because I was growing up in the 90s. Because I was born in 87, so I was a kid during the 90s, so we hadn't heard most of it yet. Because our parents were all into the 60s and 70s stuff, so we hadn't really gotten into that. Like I knew who Black Sabbath was, but I hadn't really gotten down the rabbit hole with it. So it was just something we'd never heard, but we never heard of these guys. And when up until like the mid 2000s, I'd never really dug into like old school heavy metal. Like when Killswitch Engage came out with their cover of Holy Diver, I was like, oh, this is a great tune by them. And then I found out it's the cover by Dio.
Yeah. Fun fact. Other than Metallica, the two records that really got me into traditional heavy metal and power metal was I came back one day from like a doctor trip and I had some like bad news or a bad experience or some shit. And my mom took me to a record store at Tower. And just based on the covers alone, I picked up Holy Diver by Dio and Trilogy by Yngwie Malmsteen, where he's like kneeling, shooting, lasers at like some three-headed dragon. I was just like, and then I heard the music and it just totally changed my life. It was like, this is the sound I have been waiting for forever. And now I finally have it again.
I love that, mate. That's a great story. And it also reminds me of the times sometimes you would just buy an album for the cover.
Exactly.
All the time. Like that was like a weekly ritual for us where we go to the record store and just look through the racks and see what jumped out at us. Because we could, we were all like working at grocery stores and stuff, so we could afford like one album each.
Yeah.
And like we just pick random stuff, and sure, you pick a bad one every now and again, but most of the time, stuff with kick-ass album
pretty well.
Really shines out.
I ended up like buying Limp Bizkit stuff and Korn stuff, expecting to hear something good because everybody else was like, "This is the shit right now," and I'm like, "Okay, there's some stuff like I like Follow the Leader and some of this stuff, but just like
The early
pales in
ones actually pretty
comparison.
awesome.
It pales in comparison compared to like, if I'm comparing that to like Testament's The New Order, because I got the best of kind of albums really introduce you to a lot of good stuff. Because before, like right after I got Holy Diver, I got The Beast of Dio, which had a huge number of his songs
Which
throughout
is
his
a
career.
great title. Isn't that the greatest title?
Yeah, I know exactly. The Beast of Dio. And then it has this wolf on the front of it. Fucking awesome.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, but yeah, it's
that is true. Soul Assassin. Machine Head did an absolutely monstrous cover of "Hallowed Be Thy Name" that I didn't think Rob Flynn was capable of.
I got to hear that one. Cradle of Filth's "Hallowed Be Thy Name" cover is fucking awesome too. If you've got a chance to listen to that.
It's like it's sad too, because like all these bands that like came out in the early '90s, like Machine Head, they used to be really good, and then they started opening their mouths.
Yeah, Blackening was kind of like the peak of Machine Head, and then kind of went downhill. It's like, why don't you just release the Blackening Part 2, or just something, write good songs. Stop bitching about stuff that you're. Just stop running. I wish artists in general, left and right, would stop talking politics. Because even Alice Cooper, he's conservative. He hates politics. He hates talking about politics. He's just not interested in politics. And then you got guys like Tom Morello who can't shut up about it. And,
oh God! And it's so bad because he's such a good guitar player, but he's such a left-wing piece of crap.
I know.
Like, oh God, would you stop? I want to like you. Stop making me not like you.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, if they're not clever enough to make this stuff allegorical, then don't bother putting it in your music.
Exactly. Yeah, Metallica makes allegorical stuff. They don't make statements.
Look at Rush with songs like "The Trees" or "Free Will." Like they were obviously talking about
libertarians, heavily,
like more.
Well, the whole of freaking 2112 is Ayn Rand.
Pretty much, yeah. And like some people would kind of look at me funny when I say that. I'm like, well, listen to the friggin' lyrics. It's like jumping right out of you. It's not like it's
I will choose free will. What about that is ambiguous?
Exactly. Exactly.
My favorite part of that chorus is like the same thing that we always got taught in the Marine Corps as part of leadership: is if you choose not to decide, you've still made a choice.
Still made a choice. I love that line.
If your plan of action is to do nothing, well, that is an action.
That is a choice. Yes. That's right. I love that line. It's one of the greatest lines written.
Oh, dude! I mean, that's one of the reasons Geddy Lee is probably one of the best songwriters of that generation, because like he had so much ability to, put stuff in there and not just come out and directly say it.
Well, Peart did a lot of the lyrics, though. Neil Peart did a lot of the lyrics. He was a poet almost, really. I mean, they all wrote the music. They all wrote everything, but Peart did a lot. He was the big libertarian guy in the band for a long time.
And again, we need a tally on the side to see how many times I say this. We will be getting to Rush before long, because it's been way too long since I've talked about them.
Are we doing the drinking game? Every time you mention Motorhead, we drink. Every time you mention Rush, we drink.
Well, I want them to be conscious by the end of it.
But yeah, so go back to this album, though. This album and the next one, and then the live one after it, are probably the three favourites of mine of his solo material. I'll call it solo material, but non-Scorpions, non-UFO material.
Yeah.
The following one, and then the One Night in Budokan. So
yeah, that's one of the ones I will break my rule and talk about.
Assault Attack is my favorite of the MSG.
So there's four. I'd say there's four, in a row that were just brilliant. All were very successful in Europe anyway, and established him. But as you say,
and then he kind of went away for a long time, and then came back and did like re-recorded versions of some of his old stuff, a lot of covers, and some of it's really good. Like one of the ones in his later period, off of I forget which. I think it's Heavy Hitters Volume 2. He has a song called "Save Yourself," where he's like straight up channeling early Van Halen.
I think he's also a born again Christian.
Is he?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because when he talked about his experiences in 2003, I think he did bring into the fact that he had become a Christian, and that kind of gave him some sense of inner peace. I don't know if he's still beefing with his brother. Let me look it up real quick, because I've heard of that.
It's possible, because something must have pulled him back from the brink with substance abuse, etc. So very often it is that.
And Phil, we were talking specifically about The Trees and 2112, and also the song "Free Will." But a lot of Rush, if you listen to the lyrics, it's very much about personal liberty and, kind of
artistic
being your own
freedom as
person.
well.
Yeah.
Artistic freedom, nobody telling you what you should think or say or write or paint, or there's a lot of that in there.
Yeah, and as well as like talking about the stuff kids deal with growing up, like subdivisions is the perfect thing with that, of just reaching out to the teenage side of our audience and be like, yeah, this is what it's like, and yeah, it sucks, but
I've always
you'll
loved
get
The
through it.
Trees. The Trees is one of the best songs ever written, and it's just so informative. They should probably teach it at school.
Brett Marchetta as well.
While you groups of trees are arguing with each other about who should get the most light, the big bosses are coming in with the axes and the chainsaws. So stop. Yeah, don't you see what that? I mean, the allegory to the whole wide world there was pretty strong. Like, you guys are all being pitted against each other. Meanwhile, up there is the real enemy pulling the strings.
Yep,
it's a great song.
Well, it's really also bringing in the fact that the only way people can enforce equality is by using force.
Yeah.
So
is equality? It's the equality of the grave, but it's equality. Yeah.
Like, we are all oppressed equally.
Yeah. Oh, we're all oppressed domestically.
It's like we're all oppressed equally, except the Canadians. They get it worse.
Yeah, we do.
As far as the North America goes.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the slightly less oppressed part of Canada now, so it's a little bit better. But, we still have to suffer assholes. Like, you know who I mean. But,
Yeah, I know. So I just read up Michael Schenker. It is definitely. He says, "I believe in a creator. I popped out on this planet, and one day I'll have to go." With that, I was 9 years old when I saw my brother Rudolph Schenker's guitar and discovered I could make different sounds by putting my fingers in different places. Is my talent God-given? Well, something compelled me to strum that guitar initially. So he does have a relationship with God. I don't know if he's affiliated with any particular denomination, but he's definitely Christian.
Creator, deity, and it probably needs, guys like him probably need that to believe in something. Otherwise, they do go off the rails completely.
Yeah,
so.
I can
see that
relate.
a lot with especially rock artists, where if they don't have anything to believe in, whether it be a band, like a ethos with the band, or just their own personal kind of moral alignment. I think a lot of them do need something like religion to keep them on the rails.
Well, the temptations are so strong.
He actually has a tattoo of Jesus on his arm. Let me look.
Oh, there we go.
Hang on.
And like, again, and not everybody has to be like Stryper, that is right out and open with it, with like Bible verses straight up in the song or on the album cover. But it's good to know that like some of these guys are not just random degenerates with guitars.
Well, although Alice Cooper's a preacher, a certified bona fide Christian preacher, but.
That would be amazing. Like, could you imagine, like, visiting somewhere and you just show up at church on Sunday and Alice Cooper is sitting there preaching?
I mean, who better? Who better, to be honest?
Yeah, and he never bleeds into the music. It's the music is always the music. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and that's a very rock and metal thing. Is just like, yeah, this is what I believe, but that doesn't mean I'm gonna beat you over the head with it.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean,
and
you may beat you over the head,
but
but
openly. Christian, they weren't like, this is what you need to do. It's like, hey, this is our faith, this is what we believe, and this is what we're going to sing about.
They're right to reflect that in their music because that's who they are. You don't have to, and I'm not saying they do, but you don't need to preach to somebody in order to have your beliefs represented in your art, because that's what art is.
Absolutely.
It's the ones that then preach on top of that, and I don't just mean the Christians. I mean, like you mentioned a few guys earlier that think they're believing in a religion as well. They just don't realize it,
Yeah, they just don't call it that.
Right.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's a big part of music that guys don't talk about as much. Partly because a lot of people get really sensitive when people start talking about it. Is ideologies and belief systems and stuff like that. And you can always tell what side of the. I mean, it's just like Hollywood, where you can tell who the guys who are more conservative or libertarian are, because they're the ones who are really quiet.
Yeah.
Guys like Clint Eastwood or Mark Wahlberg or those guys, or
Chris Pratt
nowadays Chris Pratt,
Yeah.
because they just want to be left alone, do their own thing.
Yeah, Jim Caviezel's another guy that's obviously he's a bit more open.
Amazing actor. I loved him in Person of Interest, and I also loved him in I loved him in The Count of Monte Cristo too. I think that's
that's right. He was in that.
He's
really fantastic in it.
Yeah, I like him as an actor and as a guy, but he's a little bit more open about it, but only because others have kind of tried to throw things at him because of his beliefs. He feels he has to respond sometimes.
And the crazy thing is, I think you don't see more libertarian like ideals in heavy metal, because when you look at the ethos of the genre, it is so clearly directed at individual liberty and freedom of expression and all that. Just like, you're free to be who you want to be and fuck everybody who says otherwise. Like, that is like baked into it. Same thing with punk. Punk is more like the anarchist side.
Yeah, something happens along the way to some of them. I don't know whether it's becoming corporate or whatever, just pressure from those around them in the industry, but they seem to forget about that freedom of expression.
Punk at this point might as well just be like a far left advertising.
Punk is completely owned by the globalist.
And I'm sorry, we won't go over Rainbow next week because I forgot who we're doing next week. But speaking of old school punk, we'll get into that next week with the Ramones.
Awesome.
And
they're the first punk band, and as far as I'm concerned, they have consistently written the best freaking songs of any punk band in existence, from beginning to end.
Yeah, not everyone's a winner, but it's all really consistent.
Yeah, but don't worry, because if they're not a winner, they're over within 2 minutes and they're on to the next ones.
Exactly.
1, 2, 3, 4. Next song.
I
saw that. It's a band I was lucky enough to see, and just at the end of their heyday, rock and roll high school era.
Nice.
I saw them on tour. They had that lineup, and it was just freaking awesome. That was fun. What a fun.
Unfortunately, they retired before I was old enough to start seeing concerts.
Yeah, but great band, great ethos, and their ethos was stripped down rock and roll, short songs, no bullshit, just having a good time. Loved it. Absolutely loved it.
It's all fast 100%. Like, like the prog rock and psychedelic side was more the, remnants of the hippie moving forward into the 70s.
Right.
And the heavy metal was kind of the blue collar reaction to it.
Absolutely.
Well, you look at the
workers in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at the difference between a Pink Floyd and a Black Sabbath. Pink Floyd, all Oxford, Cambridge University students. Black Sabbath,
all guys who
blue collar guys.
Steel foundries.
That's why I love Black Sabbath so much. That's why I love Black Sabbath, because they're from Birmingham, which is where a lot of my family's from on my father's side. And they were blue collar, hardworking guys who earned everything they got.
Yeah, metal was the blue collar music, working man's music. So
yeah, and it shows in the kind of lyrics they write, and also the kind of mentality they have around their music, where like you could picture like Pink Floyd or somebody or those guys from the prog rock side kind of getting together after work and like talking about spiritual or political issues and stuff like that from a really highbrow level, and having very philosophical discussions. Whereas the early heavy metal guys, these guys just got off work at the plant and they're going down the pub to have a pint with the boys.
Period.
Like that. Yep. That's just, and you can tell like by the reactions or by their personalities, like that's shows very clearly in who they are.
That's why I love Tony and Geezer and all those guys. I love Bill Ward, Ozzy, all those guys. You see pictures of them, they all have like cups full of like ale and shit like that. And if they don't have cups of ale, they're probably already on drugs.
Yeah, pretty much. Which unfortunately would become a problem for Schenker going forward, where he struggled with booze and drugs for a long, long time.
That is what completely just derailed his career. It was just from like mid 90s, I think, or late 90s to like 03. He was just a mess.
Well, yeah, and I think that's why you didn't hear from him for a long time, is he was just kind of putting himself back together. Like you said, he went through a bankruptcy.
Yeah, that too.
So like, it's probably it's a pretty tumultuous time, and especially because like, usually in an artist's career, even if their personal life is off the rails, at least their commercial, like their albums are selling, they're making some money, even if they don't save any of it or never had any because their management was screwing them. They still have that to kind of keep them going a little bit, whereas in the 90s metal had just gone away.
Yeah.
And you'd have guys like, the big boys like Schenker or Dio or, bands like that playing in clubs.
Yeah, Dio was struggling playing clubs, 200 or 300 capacity clubs for a long time there.
Yeah,
never gave up though. Never gave up. Never compromised.
No, which is why you got to give credit to the ones that stuck it out and didn't change and didn't follow the trend and try to be whatever would sell records. These guys stuck to their guns. It's like, this is the music we want to make. If you don't like, well, they even say it in Armed and Ready. One of the lines in the chorus is, "And if you don't approve, use the door."
Yeah,
that's right.
Manowar's the same. I was just listening.
Dude, they said the same thing in a little more direct terms of heavy metal or no metal at all. Wimps and posers leave the hall.
The hall.
I love that. Yeah, there's no need to compromise. It doesn't mean you can't artistically expand your boundaries and do different stuff as an artist, but don't compromise on your core beliefs and your core visions. And just because other people are scorning you commercially, fuck that shit.
Yeah, and if you want to change your sound because you want to do something else or want to try something a little different, that's fine.
Great.
Or your take on industrial, which is what kind of Jugulator and Demolition are. It's kind of like Priest's take on more kind of like industrial elements, and
kind of experimenting with the newer sounds that were coming out in the 90s.
Exactly.
Like you had the rise of electronic music and stuff like that, and especially adding like audio tracks to the back, like voice audio and stuff like that. Right. They were playing around with the new sound, and it didn't sound that great, so they then went back to the older sound.
Exactly, and then they tried Nostradamus, which I think is still an underrated album.
I will have to give that another listen.
It's a lot better than you remember.
I own it. I just haven't really listened to it because I just wasn't in the right headspace for it, I don't think.
Yeah. Neither was I at the time.
I was, in another place mentally at the time, and I just didn't want to, it just wasn't grabbing me. So I'll have to go back and really listen to it and give it its proper due, because I've done that with every other Priest record, even the ones I'm not a huge fan of.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be something I have to go do, because I mean, obviously Priest is my favorite band, full stop, and you have to give it its fair shake. Like, even if you don't like it at the end of the day, at least you can say, well, I gave it a shot.
The only problem with Nostradamus that I think really affected the reception is the guitars aren't crunchy enough, and they're not at the front of the mix. It sounds way too acoustic. It sounds way too kind of Neil Diamond-ish. That's what somebody told me at a Priest concert. It's like, I didn't get the new album. It sounds like Neil Diamond, bro.
I can hear that in some of it, yeah.
I think they should make an album of Neil Diamond covers. That would be a great Priest album.
Well, I mean, let's face it. One of their early great songs was a cover of Joan Baez.
That's right.
That's true. Yeah,
and Green Manalishi with
they covered a Fleetwood Mac track, and it's still one of my favorite.
Green Manalishi was one of the heavier Peter Green songs, but yeah,
it still sounds kick-ass to this day. It's still one of my favorite Priest tracks,
and they still, you're right.
I love that live tour. It just has that swagger to it.
Mm-hmm.
And praise be Lord Thoth.
Hey, Lord Thoth, how are you, buddy?
Hail, see
you. Yeah, go ahead.
But no, it's like Schenker, I think, was in that category as well, of guys who, just kind of stuck to their lane, stayed in their lane and did their thing. And, in the 90s, that wasn't going to sell records. And unfortunately, when you're as bad with money as most musicians are,
you get into a depression, you start drinking. I get that. That's kind of what that happened to me. That happened to me in the early 10s. It's just things weren't going right, and I just got in a rut and just started drinking, and it got worse. It just got worse.
Yeah.
It's funny because you never start thinking you got a problem. You really just it's such a slow descent into it that you don't realize until it's too late and you need help, you know.
And other people can tell you you've got a problem, but you're absolutely not going to listen to them. You have to
Facts.
admit, we all have to admit it to ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, people weren't telling me I had a problem, but I realized at some point I had a problem because it just got to.
It's especially difficult too when you're in a culture like, especially the military, where it's just like that's just the way things are done.
Suck it up.
Right. You suck it up or drink heavily and.
Guys are supposed to just suck it up, but
But
yeah,
no,
Schenker must have suffered a bit of that, I think.
Well, especially again in the metal community, this is just the way things go. Like,
suck it up.
Booze and drugs are just part of the freaking experience. Like,
and
they get into that.
You're not having a good time. Are you not having a good time? Kind of thing.
Yeah. Like, well, I mean, that we get into that in Rockstar a little bit, where like he kind of goes down the rabbit hole with the
drugs and And you know what I love about Rob? He was my higher power during this because I had no idea he's been sober since like 1985. I had no idea. And so knowing that he could keep it up for that long and that James Hetfield got sober, those were like my two higher powers. It's like the metal god was my god, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, and he's been open about that ever since. And like, he was another one that he went off the rails. He damn near died.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was just like, all right, I cannot keep. He had the mental fortitude to just be like, all right, I cannot keep doing this or I will be dead.
You either got to get busy living or get busy dying, as Clint once said. Yeah.
I just wanted to bring that up because I saw him on Instagram and I follow Rob on Instagram and he put out a video that had his like 37-year chip. And he just wanted to share it with everybody. It's like, and he says, you could still rock, you can still be in heavy metal, but you can be sober and still do it to the best and still be the heaviest kick-ass kind of guy. You don't need.
It's not an easy path to walk because, like I said, especially in the community when this is just how things are done. It's like if you're not drinking or doing blow or whatever, it's just like, well, what's wrong with you?
Doing? Yeah, exactly.
So like you become part of the part of it. I mean, I grew up as a rock fan drink was associated with everything we did.
Absolutely.
Go to a gig, you drink beforehand, you drink at the gig, you drink after. You sit in your basement, listen to music with your buddies, you drink. Everything was drink oriented, alcohol oriented. It's very difficult to get, even if you don't consider yourself to be addicted.
It's just part of the culture, yeah.
It's part of the culture, and it's hard to not do it. You don't go, you know what, I'll go to that gig tonight and I'm going to not have a drink. You just don't. I'm here now. Let's have some beers. It was such an integral part, especially the working class background. Yes. It was drinking was everything. Let's go down the pub and get pissed and listen to some music.
And some guys can handle it and some guys can't, and the ones that can't, unfortunately, usually make the news or end up in the morgue.
Yeah. What the interesting thing is, Soul Assassin saying, didn't let me say he quit. He didn't. He quit drugs because most of his friends died from them. And the thing I'm thinking about is Lemmy did do drugs and Lemmy drank, but Lemmy's not an alcoholic. For some reason, Lemmy drank more than me, and he's not an alcoholic. He never was an alcoholic because he was never dependent upon alcohol. He just liked drinking. He liked the Jack and Coke, and he liked a couple methamphetamine. I
think I'd like to think that that's the level I'm at now. After I can enjoy a couple of drinks so I don't have to go mental,
Right.
And maybe that I'm lucky because physiologically I find it hard to drink way too much like I used to. Maybe it's getting older, but yeah, it's nice to be able to just appreciate a bit of it and not have to get absolutely hammered, which we all did.
Right. And fortunately for Schenker, it worked out and he got himself put back together and came out with some more kick-ass content. Like I said, he redid some of the old UFO stuff with Dr. Doctor. Mm-hmm. He did a lot of original stuff with stuff like things like Save Yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Beware of the Scorpion.
Yeah.
Great album title.
Which, again, the relationship between Michael and Rudolph showing through there.
What are you trying to say, man?
Yeah,
good album, actually. I like that album. But,
it's like, meanwhile, you can almost see Rudolph in the background. Like, what?
What did I do? There's a guy who's been in one band for his entire life, and seems like he's been a steady rock of a guy, and there's his flaky younger brother.
Yeah.
Who's
Those
fallen
younger
out?
brothers, man.
Who's fallen out?
I love
with
it when
every
you-
band he's ever played with.
That's right.
It's
I
like,
do love it when you see them all on stage now, though, with the regular sort of get your reunions and comebacks and guest appearances, and you get the like Uli, John Roth, and the two Schenker brothers on stage at the same time, and it's just the whole thing is just awesome when you get.
yeah. I mean, the Scorpions have always been one of those bands too. Like we were saying on your stream, they're just consistently great.
Yeah.
Because anybody can come up with a hit album or two, but it's the staying power that really.
I'd like to see them be the first German band in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, because I don't think they put any German band in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
That I don't think so. I don't think so.
The
Scorpions certainly deserve it.
Kraftwerk, did they get in? I don't know if they ever.
I'm not sure if they did or not.
It's
I have
hard
to
to
look that
consider
up.
them rock and roll, of course, but I do love them. I love that stuff. I've got a big electronic collection. But I don't think any others have ever. I mean, who else would there be that would be above the Scorpions?
I mean,
There's
Scorpions
others
had huge
below.
hits in America. Rocky
The
Like a
only-
Hurricane is played in every stadium, every time there's a football game.
And
To
will
this
be
day.
until the heat death of the universe.
Exactly.
Yes, he did. That's right. And now, just at the expiry of the universe, time for one last track. It's the Scorpions.
You know?
No, there will only be one song that can be played at that point. It has to be the final countdown by Europe.
Final count. But yeah, but the Scorpions, yeah, it's true. They have had big commercial success in the US. I mean, everyone likes a couple of big hits, don't they?
Yeah.
We all like a couple of big hits, and that's probably enough to get them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But if they haven't been there already, but yeah, they should be the first German act in there.
Yeah, Kraftwerk might be. They're up there. The only
They might be. They might be.
And the only two German acts that I would put up there in the same category with them would be Accept and Warlock.
Rammstein?
Rammstein, they're later though. They came in
there.
the 90s.
Okay.
What about
So,
Sergeant Fury? I like Sergeant Fury.
Yeah.
They're German.
Not that they'll ever get in there, but Sodom's another one I'd put up there.
Creator?
But they're never going to put a thrash metal band on.
No,
Metallica.
Metallica's the only one.
Kraftwerk are in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Rightly so. 2021, rightly so, because they're hugely influential and original.
And
I've seen
Priest
them
finally
twice
got-
live. Believe it or
Priest
not, I've seen
finally got in
Kraftwerk
there
live
this year.
twice.
Which it's about time.
Yeah.
It's like you have people like Tina Turner in there, and you don't have one of the founders of heavy metal.
I like
Really? Yeah.
Tina. I've seen Tina live once, so she was good.
I don't mind Tina Turner stuff, but she's not rock and roll.
She had a great.
ABC to Turner is pretty rock. It's pretty rock and roll. If you listen to some of the simply the best,
True.
better than all the rest.
I,
It's poppy, but it's got a good like rock and
She's
roll
got
bass line of drumming.
Yeah, and her guitar player was a guy called John Miles. Her band leader and guitar player was a guy, John Miles, who had some hit singles in Britain under his own name in the 70s. He's a brilliant musician, multi-instrumentalist, great guitar player, brilliant singer, and he was her sidekick for like 20 years. He died about a year ago. She was quite effusive about him, and if you ever see him and her singing a duet on Try a Little Tenderness, he just absolutely slays it. Brilliant singer. Never managed to get international success under his own name, but did have a couple of hits in Britain.
What's
He's
his
one of
name
these
again?
guys. He's never going to make it that big, but he's brilliant, you know. But he
Is his
found
name
his
John
niche.
Miles?
John Miles.
John Miles. Okay.
Miles, John Miles. Yeah. He had a big hit called a song called Music.
Yeah, I see it. Music on Rebel.
And Rebel. Rebel's a great album, but yeah, it's not rock. It's kind of pop, rock, soul, whatever. But Tina is such a nice. She was so lovely on stage and so warm. You just couldn't help. You can't help but like her, you know.
And getting into Schenker's style a little bit, like you can hear it where a lot of his influences came in. Guys like Jeff Beck, Eric Clapton. Let's see, who's some of the other
Beck
ones
is a big
are.
influence for sure. That kind of free expression.
Yeah, but you can really hear that kind of stuff. And as far as who he influenced, I mean, Kirk Hammett and James Hetfield from Metallica, Dave Mustaine, Marty Friedman, Garrow from Pantera, Alex
Michael
Skolnick, and
Lamont.
Eric Peterson.
Michael Lamont from Arch Enemy.
Yep. Mike
And I showed
McCready,
you that
Pearl
in the
Jam.
Gilded page, right? I sent
Yep.
you that image
Yeah.
of Schenker and Amat together.
I think that's because you could count Schenker possibly as the first real first wave of heavy metal, for the first real guitar hero of that post Page
That wasn't in one of the
and
NWOB
Blackmore
Atonement
and all
bands,
those
yeah.
guys. He was the
Right,
first one.
He's right before Eddie. You know,
Yeah,
he's
that's right. So he was just like post Blackmore, post Jimmy Page, post those guys, but pre all that, he was the first of his generation's guitar heroes, probably the biggest one. And those first four Michael Schenker group albums are just top 100 of all time, no problem in the metal.
Yeah,
genre.
and his influence on thrash is huge. I mean, you have
Yeah.
both guitarists from Metallica, both the best guitarists from Megadeth, Pantera, Testament, Gary Holt from Exodus,
Yep.
Rob Cavastani from Death Angel, Adrian Smith from Iron Maiden, Slash, Paul Gilbert, Randy Rhoads, George Lynch,
Yeah.
Warren DeMartini from Rat, John Petrucci from Dream Theater, Michael Amott from Arch Enemy, Dan Spitz from Anthrax,
all these guys.
Jeff Waters from Annihilator.
Yeah, he is seminal.
Kerry King from Slayer. So like all of the big four.
Jeff Loomis too.
Jeff Loomis.
I think he did something very different with metal and different from what had come before. So
and he introduced that kind of European proto metal kind of guitar.
Yeah, that neoclassical, really heavy guitar sound.
Yeah. Mix that together.
The influence of classical music in which Ritchie Blackmore had done too, but not to the same extent, I think, as Schenker took it to, as opposed to blues influence,
right?
Classical influence,
right?
Big difference, and Schenker was leading exponent of that.
Oh man, if we go on about best guitarists, like that's going to be an insane list
forever.
Well, maybe we could do the top three and then work backwards, or.
Well, the way to do it is everybody nominates three and you talk about them.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. That's a way to do it.
Because otherwise it's an endless list, but if you're all forced to nominate three each and go around.
Is it lead guitar players, or can we include? Okay.
I'll take everything from lead, rhythm, blues, rock, metal, whatever you got.
Yeah, it could be anything.
Oh my god, that's going to be almost impossible. Top three. Fuck.
Yeah.
Well, then you pick a selection.
Yep.
But it forces that because otherwise what you get is an endless list of guitarists.
Right.
And you don't get to talk about them all fully. But if you pick three each,
I'll have to pick my three.
You have to say why. You have to say why.
Right. My three, if I pick three, I'm going to make sure, I'm going to try to anticipate your guys' three, and then I'm going to maybe add some people that nobody ever brings up in a discussion.
That would be great.
And I will add only one per band. So you can't put KK Downing and Glenn Tipton on there.
Right.
Could you call him KK Tipton and get away with it that way?
Well, I mean, and there's also Richie Faulkner in the conversation. So,
But yeah, I think there are rules, one per band, only three. I don't know if there are other rules, but there's
I'd say any style can
any
go.
Style,
I love everybody from Stevie Ray Vaughan to freaking.
Oh my god, yeah.
No, you could
all
go
the way
back.
up.
Gary Moore,
Scotty Moore, Elvis's guitarist. You could pick anyone you wanted. Gary Moore. Oh, I love Gary Moore. Yeah,
he is so great. He's been in so many great bands too.
He's a great songwriter, amazing musician.
Enormous challenge to pick.
And he's one of those guys like Jeff Beck, where he just keeps popping up in conversations with the best of all time, and yet he kind of just floats between bands.
The only thing I wish Gary Moore did was more of the style that he had created with Wild Frontier in '87. I wish he had done more of that instead of going back to the blues, because if he had done a little bit
stuff.
Yeah, I really do. His 1985 album, I think, I forgot the name, but that one and Wild Frontier are my two favorite. I like those more than some of the Thin Lizzy stuff, to be honest.
Well, the one I like, I think, though, particularly from a Lizzy aspect, would be, it wasn't really Lizzy, it was him and Phil Lynne, it was Out in the Fields. I mean, that's...
Oh, I love it, yeah. I love
Schenker's actually covered that on Heavy Hitters Volume 2, I think.
That was one of Gary Moore's heaviest pieces, I think. Yeah,
It's amazing. Over the hills and far away.
70, I know you got to go, so
I do.
Yeah, you said
Unfortunately,
that.
one has duties.
I
yeah.
understand.
But this has been awesome, man. But
No,
yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Always good having you
glad
on
we
and
got-
talking about a subject like this. I mean, like, you can't say
Yeah.
enough good things about a player like
Mhm.
this.
I know.
That
I mean,
absolute game changer.
well, I'm going away to listen to all the albums later tonight. So I've got about 30 of them in my collection, and my God, I'm digitally dusting them off. Like, I forgot I had this one. But those four in particular, from that sequence of four that he did just straight after UFO, is
And
great. They're all brilliant.
before we
Brilliant
go,
song.
one guy I think he was definitely an influence on, not that he would ever admit it, is Yngwie Malmsteen. Because when you look at it, that neoclassical style that came out of the
I could see that.
70s, well, he started playing at about 79, 80. So,
I could see that. Schenker was big then. He was big.
but anyway, man, it's been great to have you on. And
My pleasure, mate.
what do you
Yeah,
got
it was
going on?
It's always a
man?
pleasure
Well,
talking to you about anything 70s. So
Well, yeah, no worries. Well, tomorrow, Pope, you and I are traveling to the beat of a different drum. No, we are going to be doing that classic Walter Hill movie, Southern Comfort. So
Great
watch
movie.
it. So yeah, 3 p.m. Mountain Time tomorrow. It's Only Talk and Roll is a movie special on the movie Southern Comfort. I can't wait because I freaking love that movie. I love Walter Hill movies, and I love this movie in particular. So that's tomorrow.
Outstanding.
That's cool. Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Pope.
Absolutely, man. Always glad to have you.
See you
Same.
tomorrow.
Yeah,
Cheers,
take care,
everybody.
man.
Bye. Bye.
And Sentinel, what do you got going on this week, man?
Right now, I am just doing like well, not live streaming, but I just uploaded a quick little video of Lemmy on, I call it the Wisdom of Lemmy Kilmister, and it's basically him on his opinion of politicians and what we actually should believe in, instead of like religion and, what people say. It's like, believe in rock and roll. It'll never let you down.
Absolutely, man. And that could be a whole series. That could be a whole series on just
The philosophy of Lemmy Kilmister, where we go through his quotes and his interviews and just kind of talk about stuff like that. That'd be awesome.
I mean, or even for just something for just your channel, where you just kind of post up every now and again. Just
sure. I'm gonna start doing more.
The gospel according to Kilmister.
Exactly. I'm really busy usually, but I would love to set up a situation where we talk about, different from this, but in the same kind of ballpark, musicians, and then sort of maybe something else that people don't always think about out of their take on things or something similar. So
yeah, man, that sounds like a good deal. And anything else you got going on?
Not really. I've been so busy lately with other things, and of course I just informed you of earlier about what's going on, so I got to keep an eye on that, and just trying to get through it all, and enjoy the music. I bought a bunch of albums lately that I've been listening to, and I'm having a blast. Follow me on the Sentinel 43 on Instagram, where I upload action figure photography or albums that I'm currently cranking or stuff like that. And check out my YouTube channel. It's kind of an eclectic mix of different videos, music videos, topical videos, interviews, the whole 9 yards. So just letting you all know that.
Yeah, man. And I've watched a few of his gaming videos. He does a pretty good job, like especially the old Star Wars stuff, because you're a huge Star Wars nerd, like I.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I got to get back to doing that. I haven't finished.
We need to start highlighting the older Star Wars stuff, where it's just like, this is why we loved it.
Right.
This is why it was great. And
I know several Star Wars people in this other Star Wars community that I follow. With I don't know if you've heard about OG Star Wars and Open Airlock Policy and Raging Rhino
a couple of times.
Yeah, those guys. Yeah, definitely. I love going to their live streams and just typing and talking about it. And I talk with them. Well, when I was on Twitter, I was talking with them all the time about it. So
Yeah, and
We
I
should
need to
definitely
get
do.
back into the fandom too, because like I used to be a huge Star Wars nerd, and now like I'll go back and even play the older games, and I'm just like, oh, I know what all this leads to, and it just makes me sad.
Yeah, I know. I just try to put my headspace is this is real Star Wars. I'm going to enjoy real Star Wars, and that's going to be it. And you know, I hate to put it this way, but like the president of Iran, I refuse to recognize the existence of a certain place that I have family from, by the way. That but as far as Disney Star Wars goes, I refuse to accept. I find it. I agree with open airlock policy. It's definitely an affront to real Star Wars than George Lucas kind of
Yeah,
era.
and unfortunately, I've got that on two sides because like as much of a Star Wars nerd as I will be, I will always be a Trekkie first, last, and always.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, this is one of the first things I put on my desk when I got to the new place.
Oh, cool. Is that the Enterprise E or D?
No, this is the original from the refit,
Oh,
from
okay.
the motion picture.
Awesome.
Which I want to do a series on like movie soundtracks, and that's
we have to. We absolutely have to. I'm a movie
I think me and
soundtrack
Zeno are
geek.
going to be talking about Star Trek: The Motion Picture,
Okay.
just in general. But I want to bring the
seen that one.
soundtrack up. It's one of 4 albums I actually own on vinyl. It's the only one that's not Judas Priest. So,
Oh, wow.
but it's such a beautiful soundtrack, and we'll talk about it when we go into the movie. But I'll definitely see if you want to be down for that because I don't know when it's
I'll
going
have
on
to
yet.
see Star Trek the movie because I've seen First Contact, I've seen The Wrath of Khan, but and I think I've seen the 4 where they rescue the whales in
Yes.
San Francisco.
Oh,
I like that. I think it's a search for Spock. Which one?
Like the motion picture era is my favorite. Like the look, the uniforms, all of it is just great.
Yeah, it is, and the acting is. I mean, the long form storytelling they were able to make actually really enhances everything,
Well,
and actually the acting is even better.
People bag on the motion picture because it's like kind of like slow and a little more cerebral than normal, but it's like it's an episode of Star Trek just done with a much bigger budget.
Right.
But no, man, we'll have to get it more into that. And as for me, like obviously you can catch me every week here for Rock and Roll Religion. I'm probably gonna actually bite the bullet and start streaming on Twitch again if I can. Mostly BattleTech and Mech Warrior stuff. I think I'll probably start a new playthrough in BattleTech. We have our own little merc company and go play around, blow stuff up. And I'll occasionally do 40K stuff as well. So check me out over on Twitch. Other than that, I'm going to be starting to do more stuff on Rumble exclusively because YouTube has gotten to the point where we can't talk freely about certain things.
Oh, absolutely. I've got a Rumble channel myself. If you want to, do you want the link of the Rumble channel that I got going?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll put that up. Just put it up in the main chat.
Okay. Let me because I got to find where the specific address of where it is. Hold up.
Because I back all of these episodes up over on Rumble, and I should start creating content over there that's unique because I do really like that platform and I want it to succeed. So creating original content over there.
Chat. There it is.
There we go.
Yeah, I got like I got my John Schaefer video up there before he goes to like the Capitol, and I got like it's pretty cool. There's stuff on there that you definitely will get a lot of shit for if you put it on YouTube. So
yeah.
Tips to that.
And it's one of those things too where I love the platform. I really hope it does well. And Lord Thoth, I have already given that my money. So, and like I was showing the guys before, I haven't finished painting it yet, but I've got like the main color scheme down of a new unit I'm creating. So that's going to be a kick-ass thing going on. And if I create an Instagram for this channel, I may start posting some of that stuff up there too once I finish it.
Cool.
And other than that, you can catch me on 70s Rock Fans channel every Monday for It's Only Talk and Roll. Every now and again, I will pop in on Foul Ball Productions MFR Cocktail Lounge, and I'm usually on Vets Talking Tuesday with Soldier Spirit, where we, put just a bunch of vets talking about pop culture and stuff. So that's always a fun time. And then you can always check out 70s Rock Fan on Bourbon and Boarding, which is another great show where him and Brahma Bull get together and talk about whiskey and hockey. So that's always a good time. which Go Bruins. And other than that, take care, stay safe. I love you all, and I'll catch you next time.